Thank you so much for joining us here at The Research Her, the show working to improve the health disparities for women of color, one topic at a time. I am Alicia. I'm here learning and growing with you as we research our way to well-being. I am so excited to share with everyone today's guest. We have Miss Arianna Stokes. This is someone that I knew at this point for most of my life, ever since we were kids. So we met about 9, 10 years old, and since we were kids, she has always been just a determined queen, okay? And she has never lacked in reaching any of the highest honors. She is always determined to be at the top. And it is not to my surprise when I found out that she was seeking to pursue education at a doctoral level. It was like a no-brainer in my opinion, because that's just in her character. Let me tell you a little bit about Miss Stokes. She received her Bachelor of Science in History Education from Jackson State University, where she was a member of multiple organizations. She is my soror, so she pledged Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated when she was in undergrad, and she's very passionate about education. She started teaching roughly 4 years ago, and she's a bomb teacher. She has been honored as Teacher of the Month by administration. She received her Master's of Education in Education Technology and continued on now. She's back at Jackson State receiving a PhD. And her research focuses on issues persistent in online learning courses and programs. So I am excited to share with you all Arianna today. Let me put you into conversation with my home skillet biscuit. We have the Arianna Stokes here with us today. What a freaking blessing. Y'all are blessed. You don't even know it yet. So we're going to start off with our icebreaker questions. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
So, what is the last song that you listened to?
The last song I listened to, Racks in the Middle, Nipsey Hussle. I was listening to it in the gym, matter of fact.
Okay.
Yeah, I just like Racks in the Middle. Jamming. It was helping me get through lifting weights. So
okay, perfect. So speaking of lifting weights, that comes with eating a certain type of diet. But if there was one food that you wish had no calories, what would that food be?
Okay, to be honest, it'll be anything that's a dessert, because that is my weakness. Like,
oh,
anything.
You gotta pick one, though. You can only pick one.
Oh my God, one thing. Red velvet cake.
It's the cream. It's the cream.
Yes, the cream cheese.
Yes. So what?
And if it was chocolate cake, I wouldn't even eat it. But go ahead.
No, but really, like, it's the red velvet cake, and it can't be too chocolatey. It can't be. What is your ratchet pleasure?
Twerking in the mirror, for sure, and probably listen like Cash Doll, or City Girls, and rapping to myself in the mirror. Definitely a ratchet pleasure.
Yes. So I like to believe that it's more exercise, actually. So this has been everyone's ratchet pleasure, and I would like to tell you that it is not ratchet. It is a workout. Okay, it is a workout. Okay, so let's get to know you for real. So tell us a little bit about growing up as Arianna. Did you always know you would pursue higher education?
Okay, so no, I did not always know. Growing up, I'm the youngest of 2, and there was a lot of pressure to do everything right. So, this spirit of perfectionism came about probably around the time I was in middle school. Mm-hmm. Just from that point forward, everything was like a race, a competition, but it was within myself. Like you have to do X, Y, and Z so you can be here. And everything was like a calculated step for something else that was to follow. So it was student council, cheerleading, this club, that club. It was like my entire life. I was so focused on building my resume, even in like middle school and high school. So then when it came time for college, that was the same thing with my application process for undergrad. I basically sold myself because I was a part of so many clubs and organizations at school. And then that transferred to my undergraduate experience. I did the same exact thing. So some of the same clubs and organizations I was a part of in K-12, I ended up doing the same exact thing in undergrad. I was in student government. I was NAACP, class queen, National Honor Societies. I pledged AKA my sophomore year. So I was just like super active on campus. And then when I finished undergrad, I sold myself again the same way for my master's program. So it was like a continuation. It's always been this build yourself to make yourself applicable to whatever stage you want to be in next. And I didn't always know I wanted to pursue higher education. It was like the more I became active in different clubs and organizations and the more experience I got as a college student, the more I knew I wanted more for myself.
Mm-hmm. So what are some of those experiences that really shaped your path to where you are now from undergrad specifically?
Okay, so my greatest experiences were academic and they've come from professors that I encountered while I was an undergrad. One professor is Dr. Elliot Lackey. He was my undergraduate history teacher. I was a history major. Another is Dr. Rico Chapman. He was my advisor at a point. He was the interim dean at a point, and he was also a professor of mine while I was an undergrad. And those two men, they were very well decorated. Like they had several degrees, they had these sabbaticals, and they were part of this organization. And they always, made a point to let me know that I shouldn't just stop at getting a history degree and that, I shouldn't just limit myself because when I was 19, I was sure I'm going to be a teacher for the rest of my life. This is my career. I was just certain. But they saw something else for me, and that helped me to kind of move forward and transition. Dr. Chapman, especially because he was the interim dean and my advisor when I was finishing my history major my senior year. And he had a conversation with me. He was like, "So what's next?" I had just passed my exit exam. And I was like, "What do you mean? Are you going to school?" I'm like, I haven't applied. I did not apply to grad school in my senior or junior year of undergrad because I didn't have serious intentions on continuing right then.
Because you thought you were going to be a teacher. So did you think that all of undergrad?
For the most part, yeah. It was like I knew I wanted to pursue another degree, but I was like, I've made it so far. And the steps it took to becoming a teacher, it wasn't a lot, but it was enough to the point where I was like, okay, I can do without school for a minute. And my plan was to take off for at least a semester, and that just did not work.
You now have these influential people in your life, so they're telling you what you're going to do, okay?
Right.
But you still haven't applied. So what is that application process like for you? And like, when did you decide like, okay, yeah, I'm going to actually pursue this master's?
It really came from Dr. Chapman. And like I said, we were having a conversation about what was next. And he was like, you should really get a degree in library science. And I was like, library science? Like, who has a library science degree? And he was telling me about schools that offered the degree and what I could do with it. And he was like, you're already a history major. They align together. It would be like record keeping and X, Y, and Z. And I mean, it sounded really appealing, but I was like, this is not what I want to do. And I know this is not what I want to do in some way, shape, or form. I still want to, be in education and have access to students. So I started teaching on January 4th, 2016. And within maybe a month of me being at work, there's a school called Belhaven University in Mississippi. They also have a Memphis campus. They had several online degree programs. And they kind of campaigned to teachers. So they would come to our schools and leave like propaganda in our mailboxes. And one day I just really looked at it and I had a conversation with one of my coworkers and she was like, "Girl, I'm at Belhaven." I was like, "Really? Well, how is it?" And she was telling me about her experience and her getting her degree. And then I was looking at what they had to offer. And I was like, well, I know I want to stay in education, so I need to get a master's of education in something. So that is really what influenced me to get my master's in educational technology. Now, a little fun fact. When I was younger, like elementary, middle school, I loved the internet. So what people would consider like coding now, I was doing on MySpace.
Yeah, so you used to make the little graphics on the pictures.
Yes, that was my
I
thing.
remember that. You made me a few.
I used to love, like, creating PowerPoints, editing pictures. That was my thing. So I was like, well, this is perfect. Educational technology will allow me to still be in education, but to bridge something else that I really enjoy. And I really enjoy working with computers. Not so much that I want to do IT, because I don't want to do information technology at all. But I love, apps and different programs and how they can be used in the classrooms to create experiences for teachers and students. So that was like perfect for me. And as soon as I learned something in the program, I applied it in my classroom.
Yeah, to us ignorant folks who have no idea what ed tech is, what is ed tech? Because I'm unfamiliar with it.
In terms, educational technology is literally just using technology to enhance teaching and learning experiences. So bridging teaching and learning using technology.
Okay, I love that. I mean, but that's actually the current and the future of education. Like, I've been listening to a lot of podcasts related to people who are starting to just create their own online courses for students to learn, different coursework, even classes that are taught in the actual universities being taught on these independent platforms like general chemistry. You can register for the course on an independent platform. So that's cool. Like, you're literally studying the current and the future of like education. So you're working on your master's. If you look back and you could change anything like about your whole like master's program and your undergrad experience, what is one thing that you feel like you would change or redo or edit?
I don't think I would have been a history major if I knew then what I know now. I love history, like books about history, random history facts. Like, I'm very passionate about history, but I don't feel like history and having a career in teaching K-12 has really aligned me the way I wanted it to with my master's degree or my PhD. And I wish that I would have exposed myself to more career opportunities with the different majors in the education sector so that I really could have prepared myself for higher education. What happened was during undergrad, I kind of scared myself into thinking that I would be too young and too small for secondary education and higher ed. And like even now, I don't feel comfortable teaching at a high school just from experiences that I've had with like student teaching or even just now with middle school kids. It's just these children are just very unique. And I was like, I couldn't see myself teaching at the collegiate level, but I could see myself on an administrative level, which is why I'm seeking the PhD that I am seeking. But I played it safe because I prepared my entire life to be a teacher and I wasn't ready for that sudden change.
At what point did you realize, like, okay, I'm going to pursue a PhD?
Well, it was always a dream of mine, but it was like a dream far off in the distance. I didn't think that I would be qualified. I didn't think that I would get to that point. I didn't think that I would have the stamina. And I didn't know what I wanted a PhD in, but it was always like a faint thought, a faint dream. Like one day I want to be Dr. Stokes. Like one day I want to do that for myself. And it wasn't until I was wrapping up like my last 2 courses in my master's program and so many people around me, it was like every time I had a conversation with somebody about school, they were like, PhD. PhD. It was like everybody was just regurgitating the same thing. PhD. What you gonna do next? PhD. Are you going to school? Blah blah blah. And I was
PhD.
yeah, I was like, what are y'all talking about? Like I am done with school. I have a master's degree.
But I felt that way about you too when you were working on your master's. Like I just am like, oh, so I in my head I'm like, I know her. That girl is not stopping after no master's. Your drive is like none other. Even though in your mind you're telling yourself like, actually, I don't know. Everyone around you already knows because it comes out of your pores. You just haven't convinced yourself yet. It's like we know
And
that about you.
that means so much to me because when I say like I just battle with doubt all the time. Like I wasn't ready. I second guessed myself a lot, and I even tweeted earlier today like sometimes I'm still in disbelief. I'm a whole PhD student right now, and the program that I applied for accepted me, and I have yet to have, a bad experience. I see so many Black women, girl, I'm probably going off on a tangent.
No, come on, bring it off.
See, so many Black women in academia that don't have great experiences, and they don't have supportive advisors, or they don't have a good relationship with their cohort. And I'm just blessed to have all of that. And I remember when I got my master's degree and we had like a little dinner or whatever, and I was just telling everybody that was there. When I graduated from undergrad, I didn't feel support. I kind of just felt like, okay, whatever, this is done. But when I finished my master's degree, it was like every person in the room was like, so even my niece was like, you gonna be a doctor one day? Because I'm gonna be a doctor too. And after that, I was like, okay, yeah, now
I'm doing this. I'm not.
Yeah, I have to do it now because the baby needs me to do it. So, I just feel really blessed to be in this space. And I have conversations with myself all the time. Like, I just thank God. I always tell him, like, I'm thankful for the gifts that you've given me and for the way that you've allowed me to use them. And I try to not use my gifts selfishly. And I think that's really why I'm still in education, because I feel like it's more of a service to me to be of a service to someone else.
So speaking of like getting that support, how is it working on a PhD at a HBCU?
It has given me some of the greatest moments and experiences of my life. Things and moments and people I didn't know I needed. I'm the youngest person in my cohort. So everybody is like 30 plus. Some people are married, and then there's me. The
YOLO went through life.
Yeah. And with my city girls and my headphones on the way to class. That's how I function. But my professors have been so supportive and encouraging, and many of them are historians by nature. They grew up in the segregated South, and them or their family members fought Jim Crow, and they aren't that many generations removed from slavery, so they're just full of knowledge. All of them have several degrees, and they're just full of so much knowledge and talent. And I'm humbled that they saw fit to accept me, and the experiences they provide is just great. I'm just absorbing everything, and I just feel so comfortable and relaxed. I've never experienced a moment where I felt inadequate or like I couldn't do or that they wouldn't do. And they provide access to speakers. They give us contact information. And then we network with other people who have finished the program. Some of them have become university presidents. Some of them are deans and provosts and VPs at universities. And they're owning corporations and assuming all these administrative roles. It's one of the greatest things that I've ever had access to, on top of, having a cohort that is supportive and encouraging. They allow me to be who I am, and I really appreciate, my professors and my cohort members for being supportive in that way.
Yeah, that's really dope. Like, especially when you speak of like the comfort, like just being comfortable with being in class, because I know there's some people listening to this like, oh, you supposed to be comfortable? I didn't even know.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that. So that's really dope that is the experience that you have. So how did you, for your program, Do you have to find a research advisor, or do you come up with a research topic and then you get a committee to approve the topic?
When each student is admitted to the program, by the time they have orientation, they are assigned an advisor. And your advisor is basically just to get you acclimated and get you started. So by the time you finish your fall and spring semester, your advisor will start to work with you more heavily on chapters 1, 2, and 3.
So this is your first year?
Technically, yes. So really, your first year is supposed to be focused on your foundational coursework, but depending on who your advisor is, depending on who you are as a student, that will kind of determine how much work you get done as far as solidifying a topic. Because we start talking about topics as early as the admission process. That's part of our admission process, to submit a desired topic and to write about it. But you start to solidify after, or really during, your second semester, and by the time you become a sophomore, which is what I am now, technically a sophomore, you have solidified a topic and you've begun your research. So I'm gonna call it a quest, because it's definitely a journey.
It is. Research is a journey. You start something, don't finish. Yes. So tell us a little bit about your research.
I was lucky enough to choose a topic that was kind of like a spillover from my master's program, and my advisor was like, cool, we can roll with it. I was not told that I had to change it, that I couldn't do it. So yay me. My topic focuses on student persistence in online programs and courses. So there's an epidemic in the United States of high enrollment in online programs and courses, and it's because of affordability. That's part of the reason why I personally got my master's online. It was convenient, it was affordable, so to me, it was perfect. At the time, I would be considered an adult learner or a non-traditional student, and that is who is pursuing, in mass numbers, online degrees and courses. But the issue is not in their pursuing, it is that they're not finishing. So we have these adult learners that start school but don't finish. And they either stop out or drop out. And there's discrepancies between, which term we should use. So I'm going to just say both. They either stop out or drop out. And there are several factors that contribute to that. Now, me, I don't want to look at the factors that contribute to it, because we already know what those factors are. I want to know why minority students in particular have issues with completing online courses or online degree programs. And I'm interested in multiple perspectives. I'm interested in the student perspective. I'm interested in the faculty perspective, and I am interested in the administrative perspective.
Can you tell me the difference between a stop out and a dropout? Because I have never heard the term stop out before.
Okay. If a student stops out, they can start school in August and then stop out, but then pick back up 2 years later. They stopped for a period of time, but they came back to school.
And the dropout just means you don't even come back, right?
Right. But if a student started a degree and then picked back up 15 years later, they still didn't drop out. It just depends. Like, some schools will keep your record, some schools will not. Some schools will, allow the courses to be valid for a certain amount of time. That's why I said there's a discrepancy between stop out and drop out. It kind of just depends on the institution and how they categorize the students when they don't finish.
Mm-hmm. So have you already started analyzing your data or found any interesting findings yet?
Yes. What is most interesting to me is that women are completing online degree programs at much higher percentages than men are. And though they are completing at much higher percentages, they also are having more responsibilities.
So you mean outside of class?
Outside of class, yes. So women categorize their responsibilities as personal and then professional. They are working, they're mothers, they have to, they're part of other organizations, and they still are persisting in these online programs. And then you have men with less responsibilities. They are stopping out or dropping out at much higher percentages than women are. In most studies, women report that their reasoning behind continuation is simply self-determination.
So what about, are the men reporting what their reason behind, like, maybe not finishing, or are you looking at just the people who are staying in the programs, or overall, do you still have access to those who actually leave the programs?
I'm looking at both. So some studies do provide both. Some studies look at students that continue in comparison to students that don't. But as far as the men, I honestly can't tell you if they provided a clear and concise, this is why we don't continue. It would be one of those cases where they check a box like other.
Mm-hmm. Got it. And then they, even when they click other, it's like no explanation.
Yeah.
Didn't feel like it.
Yeah.
So this is interesting. So you're looking at Black women and men, or like all people of color, or just everyone? Like,
I'm specifically looking at Black students.
how is your research being received by others? Like, I really wonder, like, because you're focused on like Black students, right? I would assume that it may or may not be received by others, but you also are at a HBCU.
So, like you said, I am an HBCU, so me focusing on Black students is nowhere near unfamiliar. I guarantee you that maybe there are 20 people in my cohort. Out of 20 of us, more than likely 15 of us are going to do a study that focuses somehow either on people of color or minority students, if they don't just specify Black students, period. You're going to hear Black male a lot, Black women that are double minorities, Black women who are LGBTQ. So now we got triple minorities. We are so passionate about these topics as far as, race and ethnicity are concerned, because when you look at research and when you look at data, they don't talk about Black people.
No.
So it's almost easy to find the gap in a research topic because no one talks about people. So I can take study A and I can make an entire dissertation modeling study A because
you just go study Black people.
Black people. So
I love that. I love it when people just say it again, because I just see this over and over and over again. It doesn't matter what field you're in. You can be working on Alzheimer's, you can be working on liver cancer, you can be working, no matter where you're working at, point to the minority. It ain't nobody doing that research. Boom, there goes your research right there.
And it's so crazy because when I first started reading research articles, I was like, I'm never going to be able to, get anywhere with this topic because I could not find an article to save my life that even addressed minority students in distance learning. Could not find one. And it took me months in like 7 different search engines. I was in books. I was on government websites. I was on Google Scholar, EBSCOhost. I'm looking at other dissertations. I'm looking at master's research. Girl, I found nothing. And I was like, you know what? You didn't find anything because that's the gap in the research, girl. It's her. So now you got to do it.
Yeah. And that's a beautiful thing that you came across it. So if you could do something outside of your current topic, is there anything that you feel like you would have done instead, or one other topic that you would be interested in going into?
I'm interested, and at the higher ed level, I'm interested in exploring faculty adaptability to using technology in the classroom. It's like we're in the 21st century, and you can't avoid phones, you can't avoid computers, and sometimes we put ourselves in situations where we don't really just fully analyze the context. So we've had college freshmen who have never owned a computer, or they come from an environment where they were not taught computer skills. And now we're expecting them to type papers, and we're expecting them to create presentations and for it to be a certain standard, and no one has ever taught them, so now they're just winging it. And then we have professors as well that have never been taught, they're tenured, or they teach maybe a liberal arts course. So they don't see the necessity in learning or using technology in the classroom. But now, with these 21st century learners, you have to do something. And I don't mean just communicate with them via email. You have to do something as a teacher to enhance the learning experience, and then students have to know how to use technology to enhance their learning experience and to add to the, to the culture of the classroom. So I would explore maybe, faculty perceptions of using technology in the classroom.
Yeah, that's a really dope idea, especially like I think about different fields. Like from my perspective, I look at like the chemistry department at Purdue, and one of my professors is still using one of those projectors where you write on the little clear sheets. It would be interesting to understand like what is that gap in understanding like why won't they,
Mm-hmm.
upgrade.
And, some professors, they'll argue that they don't have time. They have to do research. They have to plan for a sabbatical. They have to have office hours. They have to build courses. They have to evaluate the curriculum and blah, 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 blah. It takes 30 minutes to learn how to do a PowerPoint. Literally. There's your office hour time. Like as educators, we still have to be involved in professional development. So I don't understand, why that can't be a thing in some places. Not saying that it just isn't, but they need to definitely, as faculty members, support the inclusion of technology at the university level. We're producing, 21st century citizens. We want America's educated citizenry to be able to compete with people from other countries. They're on the computer.
Mm-hmm. And on the move. They learning how to do it while they're already on trip. Like, I mean, the advancements that are happening in other countries as far as like when you get these international schools going, like they're very advanced. These kids work computers and technology and are coding better than grown people, okay?
Yeah.
So that's I love that. A PhD is no walk in the park.
It is not.
It is not. So, what keeps you moving and pushes you to get through? I mean, based on your findings, you could easily say, oh, just self motivation, like all the women were saying in your findings. Like, that's what keeps them going and that motivates them. But if you were to pinpoint that for you, what would it be?
To be very honest, I think that the only thing that keeps me going right now is God. Like, I had a nervous breakdown maybe like 3 days ago, and I tried to do some homework and I couldn't. I was just trying to type and my mind went blank. And I think that was just God's way of telling me like it's okay to take a break sometimes. And I just feel like my purpose is greater than me. So this is, the journey I have to encounter to lead me somewhere else to do some sort of greater good for somebody. But I'm just not ready for it yet. So this is the part of me getting to that point. And if it was anything else that motivates me to keep going, it's like the support from people like you, my mom, my line sisters, my friends, my boyfriend, my family. It's like people kind of just are always right on time with the right words of encouragement that I need at that moment to keep pushing.
And that's God. You know
Yeah,
that, right?
yeah,
That's God too. That's
like I'm talking
that.
about I had a really rough, maybe like last 3 weeks. I have been so busy at work that I felt like I wasn't getting any of my homework done. So when I tried to actually get it done, I had a nervous breakdown because I'm like, girl, you have so much to do. And I have to go to class next week. Girl, right now, I got 2 case studies up on my computer and I have another writing assignment that's 15 pages and I have 2 books that I need to read. And I'm like, I have class next week. I have to pack my bag. It's just so much that goes into, preparing for class. And it can become overwhelming. So when people say nice things, something as simple as, I'm proud of you, or they jokingly call me Dr. Stokes, like I ain't there yet, but I'm working on it. Like just the smallest things. It just takes people to kind of pour into me. When my gas tank is empty, they kind of fill me back up.
Oh. That's beautiful. And we know you have a lot. You just named off all the long laundry list of things you got to do. So I appreciate your time so much. But before you head out, do you have any last closing words of advice or anything you would like to share before we let you go? Because you got things to do.
Okay, so this message will be for anybody that is considering pursuing another degree. I don't care if you want to get another bachelor's degree, if you want to start your bachelor's, an associate's, a specialist, master's, PhD, EDD, MBA, whatever. Do it. Apply and don't stop applying. I would get to a point where I was too scared. And they said it best. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. And I was so afraid of what could be that I just stopped myself. So I just want to tell people who are interested in pursuing their education at different levels to just do it and give your all. And, I'm a firm believer that if God brings you to it, he'll bring you through it. Whatever place you get to is meant for you to get through. Whatever it is, give your all into it and trust the process. And, you can never feel bad as long as you know you did everything you could.
Thank you so much for those words. Like, you heard her. Do it, okay? So thank you so much. I appreciate your time, and let's go ahead, get out of here.
Okie dokie.
Thank you so much for listening. If you want to connect with Arianna, her Instagram is at _Miss Stokes. Of course, it's going to be in the show notes. And I am at The Research Her on everybody's platform. And all my links are in the show note as well. Please go download the Research Her app on iOS and Google Play. And until next week, I holla.